Okay, this video is all about how to create a wall of peas in your garden bed, just like this one right here. It's one of our most asked questions, and I want to share it with you today. So we're going to break it down into 5 easy steps so you can do this at home from start to finish. If you're new here, I'm Tasha, and I am the content creator behind The Purposeful You. I love to share backyard garden tips, sustainable home tips, and I totally appreciate you being here today. And make sure you watch to the end, as I'm going to give a couple tips about how to companion plant with your peas in the pea bed. So let's get started here. In your garden, the first thing to do is to choose the right seeds. So before you even think about, hey, how big's my trellis going to be and all that, figure out what seeds you're going to purchase and how tall they're going to be. So we like to purchase the almond variety from West Coast Seeds, which grows about 7 to 8 feet tall. The ones you see here this year did grow past 8 feet. It was just a magical year this year, and it was really cool to see it all come to life. So you want to look at your last frost date in your area and see when you should be planting your peas to make sure that they can grow to their full potential and ready to harvest in July. You can also choose to plant snap peas, which are peas that you would eat the shell, the whole thing. The inside peas don't get too large. You can also plant shelling peas, which have large peas that you would shell and you would just eat the inside. The outside shell is a little bit hard, not as enjoyable to eat. So we actually did 2 of the beds are shelling peas and 1 of the beds are snap peas, which we like to just saute with some salt and butter and pepper, and otherwise we just shell the other peas for different meals. It's totally like garden candy. You eat a lot of it all the time because those peas are just so delicious when you've grown them yourself. Hot tip, I wouldn't plant both types of peas together because you don't know which ones are the snap, which ones are the shelling. Snap pea skin tastes really good, so you don't want to mix them up. Done that before, don't do that same mistake. So plant the shelling peas in one bed, or if you're sharing a bed, plant the shelling peas in the first half and then plant the snap peas on the second half, and just put a little marker so that you know which ones will be the snap, which ones will be the shelling. Okay, let's talk about building the raised bed and the trellis frame. So you don't need to build as tall of a bed if you don't want to. Peas need a minimum of 8 inches of soil, but we wanted to make a bit of a statement and a border in our garden to work with our layout. So the raised beds here are 18 inches tall and 2 feet wide. You will want to have at least 2 feet wide for your wall of peas, as they do need a little bit of room and you don't want them to be overcrowded, especially if you're going to be planting them in a different bed and not have their own bed. We use cedar, which is a bit of an upfront cost, but it has a long-term longevity, really sustainable. We got local wood, and it lasts a lot longer than a lot of other types of wood. For the trellis, we use 4x4 cedar posts, and we decided to make it 8 feet tall with a 12-foot post for the top, which extends past the post to create that detail on the sides that we love. So next up, choosing the right soil. If you already have a garden bed, then add at least 2 to 3 inches of compost to the top and work that in the first 5 to 6 inches. I usually leave the compost in there for about minimum 2 weeks to make sure the soil gets really beautiful and healthy before you're gonna plant. Hot tip, do a soil test to check your pH levels before you plant them if you already have an existing bed, to see if the peas will thrive in it or not. If you're building a new bed like we are, we did fill it with 3/4 of a compost organic matter blend, and then we added a compost on the first 3 to 4 inches, which of course we then worked in the top 4 to 6 inches before we planted. And we let that sit for at least 2 weeks, if possible, to get as much nutrients in the soil. So how to plant a bed like this to get the look that we achieved here. So this is an important tip to ensure that you have the wall of peas of your dreams. So, ready? Here we go. We planted peas on both sides. That's all it was. We do a full row on each side of the trellis. We space them out the normal width, around 2 inches apart. And the peas have about a 90% germination rate, so you have a really good chance that most of them will pop up. And if they don't, then you know that you have enough peas to fill that gap. And if your peas are too close together and they come up, you may want to thin them a little bit because you don't want them to fight for nutrients. So do make sure they have a good 2 inches apart when they're growing. The last tip is supporting them. This is overlooked, and half the time I find that people are like, oh my gosh, my peas all of a sudden just fell down and they broke. You want to eliminate this. This is one of the most crucial steps. So when you're growing peas, they take about 10 to 15 days to germinate. And then as they keep growing, you're gonna wanna support them every 1.5 feet. You can use twine to support them, which is super cheap and it's a sustainable product, or you could use the tie wire that we used here, which we can reuse over and over again, and they fit these trellises perfectly. So if you're building a long-term trellis like this that you know you're gonna use every year, invest in tie wire and you'll be happy because it's so sturdy and it'll keep your peas up. Okay, hot tip is I actually like to guide the plant to grow up the trellis as much as possible by themselves. The support is wonderful, but you do want them to get as strong as possible and going up that trellis. So just use your magic and keep attending to your plants and making sure that they are growing up by themselves as much as possible. But that rule of thumb is supporting them every 1.5 feet if you can. So I hope you like this video. If you want to see how we built this box in detail, let us know. We will definitely put a video together. But also let's talk about the companion planting, the bonus section. So what you can plant with your peas. If you have enough room in the front, you can plant beans. I like to do bush beans like you can see here. I also love to add nasturtiums to the corners because those are used as a trap crop. So nasturtiums are beautiful, you can eat them, and they also will trap aphids so that they don't go and kill your peas. So I love to plant a little bit of floral in there, a little bit of other vegetables in there like the peas. You can also do cucamelons. I added cucamelons halfway through the season to make sure that when I do take the peas out, that some cucamelons can grow up on the sides. If you don't know what cucamelons are, definitely Google it. They are the cutest little, they look like a mini watermelon, but they taste like a cucumber. So there's lots of different things you can plant with peas. Definitely look at companion planting charts and see what works for you in your garden and the light. But that is my companion planting tip today. I appreciate you watching till the end, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and stay tuned for some more garden tips in the Purposeful Garden.